tool is awesome. Literally put it underneath the seal surface, careful not to scratch any of the surface, lift it up, and out she comes. It's not actually what the tool is made for, but it works perfectly for this. I need the numbers off that so I can work out what it is, also measure it with some calipers. And on the other side it should be the same, I'll double check. But yeah, it works great. Feel at the back of the gearbox, a bit smaller. Awesome. There we go. Also very hard. This rear seal feels much nicer. Must be a fair bit newer than the other ones, I'd say. A bit tighter too. There we go. Not sure if you know, but some seals have the measurements written on them, pretty small writing. It'd be like 2 letters, like a 5762, which would usually indicate the inside diameter and then the outside diameter. And sometimes also they have another number to do with the thickness. So just a bit of an update on the Brumby and what's been happening. Behind me you will see the gearbox. Now I took some of this apart and replaced some seals on the actual shafts and replaced the rear seal excuse me, and took the rear housing off and resealed it. And also in the kit that came, been reading through the manuals to work out exactly how to put it together, and the little clutch spline didn't fit quite well in the input shaft, so I've sent that back to my supplier. And the clutch spline bolts onto this, which fits directly into the front of the motor. So you would have seen this in a previous video. This motor is a bit of a beast, nearly 60 kilos in weight, and should be really good. Twice the torque, more than twice the torque of the motor that was in the Brumby before. And here's all my other bits and pieces that you saw in the other video as well. And just reading through instructions, working out exactly placement for that sort of stuff. So I'm able to get cracking with some more Brumby work because I have something very important. I have this. This is my adapter plate. Now my grandfather, who is helping fund the project, has made this up, and he has drilled, obviously you can see a few holes inside. Some of those holes will have to be made slightly larger to fit on my motor. And on the other side, I'll show you a better view. And this is the other side of this adapter plate, is an actual housing from the back of an EA81. So I can drill and accurately get the holes for the gearbox side. So he downloaded the template where he is, about 400 k's away for the motor holes, and he fastened this housing to the back side and pre-drilled the holes for the corresponding holes on the motor. Those two there, and the top one, which you can see here, top, side two, and those two close together. The other holes are just holding this plate, the housing onto the plate. Now my job is to accurately drill the holes on the other side of the plate that get fastened to the gearbox. So today I'm working out whether or not I actually need this housing on my adapter plate. Now to work that out, I'm going to take the adapter plate off. The reason for that is that this stub that goes in the input of my motor does not go through this hole that's in the factory housing. I'm basically measuring the distance that my clutch is going to sit on the input shaft. The clutch is actually going to be cut so that only the inner section is going to be used, because the clutch hub spline that I got was not right. So I'm going to use the original clutch disc to take off the friction material, and the clutch disc is going to be secured onto this flange. So it's going to go, motor's going to have the adapter plate on it, then I'm going to put this flange on, and then put the gearbox on top of the adapter plate, just so I can get a gauge as to whether or not I'm going to need to use this housing from the back of the motor. So the issue is whether or not it's going to push the clutch hub too far onto these splines. Now the splines stop there. I'll give you an idea. If I look flush, you can see that half of the spline for the input shaft is actually sticking out. So I may need to have that housing in there from the back of the engine to actually space it out enough so the clutch hub is actually on the splines. So I'm just going to test that now. Okay, I've got my motor up here, and I have my adapter plate. I've just got one bolt in the motor adapter plate just so it's holding. And I've got my stub in the output shaft of the motor. Fits in nicely and is snug. Now, as you can see, this input shaft of the gearbox protrudes a long way out. And as I was saying previously, the splines are sort of half out. So I may have to cut this spigot off, but I need to measure what sort of distance that the clutch hub is going to protrude past here. Now the clutch hub itself I don't have with me, however I can get a good gauge on how far I need to offset this, or if I need to at all. So I think I'm going to have to, but I'll just measure. So I've got 18mm protrusion from the flat face there. So I need something straight that I know is straight. I'll just check this. Yeah, that's really good. So it's better. Something that I know is straight. I'll lay it across here, and I'll measure 18mm in just to see how much spline area I have left. I'll get a better view. So after measuring 18mm in from where this motor mount is going to sit, flush with the gearbox, and adding up the distance that this protrudes out, this is before I've even put my clutch hub onto this, it goes right up to, you can see that, right there where those white marks are. I've got literally no more area left for my clutch hub to sit on any splines. So this means I'm going to have to put some sort of spacer in, either behind this plate or in front of this plate. And the number one candidate is the bell housing from the back of an EA81 engine. Now, in order to work out if this is going to work, I need to measure the actual offset that this is going to make, and then add it onto this to work out if that's going to put me somewhere close to having the clutch spline actually engaging with this input shaft. So in this configuration with this single adapter plate, using this stub in the front of the motor and having my clutch plate on front of that, going into this rear housing from an EA81 into the gearbox, I will need an extra 32mm of length added on to this between the actual clutch and this stub. So I'll need 32mm extra of something to go in between this and where the clutch starts in order to actually get on the splines. I was going to go to my local engineering shop to get that clutch disc put onto that stub anyhow, so I might go to them and talk to them about what options they might have to adapt an extra 32mm of length in between those two. I'm not sure exactly, but they'll probably have some ideas on how to do it, and hopefully they can figure something out, because I think that's going to be the simplest way to go about this. So today I'm going to try and adapt my electric throttle to fit into place, where the existing throttle pedal is, I'm going to have to do some modifications to the actual pedal box. I'll show you that in a second. So this is underneath the dash of the Brumby, and you can see the steering column coming down through there. That's the steering column, and we have clutch, brake, accelerator, and no cables are attached, and you can see that hole in the file just there, which is where the brake master cylinder usually sits behind, and the brake booster. So there's only a couple of bolts holding that pedal box in. Now they are just up here somewhere. So I'm going to take them off, take this pedal box out, and see what I can do to modify it so that I can put this electric throttle pedal in. And we'll need to take these wires disconnect. This is for the brake light switch, stop light switch as it's also known. Easy. Some funny wiring going on here, like that's not good. I'll clean up this when I do some more wiring later on. This is my stop light switch, that's my brake pedal, that's my throttle, there's my clutch. Clutch I'm going to take off, and then I'm going to have to cut down this seam on the side of the pedal box here to make room for my electronic throttle. So let's get cracking. So my plan is to, hopefully you can see this, excuse the thongs. So my plan is to cut this extra piece off that you can see here, and maybe flatten the sides of this down, because I'm going to need somewhat of a flat surface, or a very flat surface, because my pedal is probably going to only fit very close, butting up to here. So I may well chop this, but I just don't want to make it a bit less structurally rigid, because it's being a pedal box, it's got to be pretty tough if you stomp on the brake. I also realised that the shaft that is for the clutch pedal is also the same shaft as for the brake pedal. That may seem obvious. However, if you take this off, you can actually slide this centre shaft all the way out, which is something that I don't want to happen when I'm driving. So solution is going to be put the clutch pedal back in, and I'm probably just going to cut it off here somewhere and keep a little spring on there so it doesn't rattle around. Also, I sort of decided that I'm going to wait until a better time of day, and then I can do some grinding instead of using a tiny little hacksaw. That way I can get this off, neaten it all up, clean it all up on the bench grinder, and put it back in the car and see what sort of room I have to mount my electric throttle. So amongst sorting out rust in the tray, spray painting under the bonnet when I get a good day and be able to push this thing outside and spray paint, doing the pedal box and getting the motor mounting to the gearbox right, and going to the engineering shop to get some stuff made up for that. I've got to think about my batteries. Now, I last told you guys, I think in part 4 or part 5, about the rust in the tray and how I'm going to leave this to the professionals, but also I'm going to leave it because I don't know where my batteries are going to go, and I'm going to do a little bit more measuring up now to see in another location where I can put my batteries so I can still use the complete tray. So I'm just in the local engineering shop, and sorry for the noise in the background. I'm going to take these adapters and this adapter plate and see what the engineering shop can do for me.